and making one function. So if I give you something like this, I'm going to have you guys graph on your paper these two lines on the same.
Did you say two wide ones?
One wide, no. Two wide, one regular.
I'm going to write that down.
Oh my goodness.
Two wide.
On the same coordinate plane. So one coordinate plane, listen to me. One coordinate plane, graph y equals -2, and graph it lightly. This is also, piecewise functions are one where you're going to take away a part. So I always recommend pencil for this.
I'm so confused.
Okay, we haven't done anything yet. I haven't done any math yet. All I've said is you might want to use pencil, and you're going to graph these two lines on a coordinate plane. So one coordinate plane. So they're going to graph over each other. So y equals -2x plus 3, and you're going to do y equals x minus 1. So you're just going to take a coordinate plane and graph both of these. I'm going to graph mine in two different colors so we can reference them as I'm showing you, because we'll put this into a piecewise function. So this first one I'll graph in red. I'm going to start up at 3 and then go down 2 over 1.
Are these perpendicular?
No. So here's what this one looks like. Make sure yours looks like mine. Yes? Or make sure mine looks like yours, because it's Monday. Okay, this one that I'm going to graph in black, I'll start at -1, and I'll go up 1 over 1, and this is what this graph looks like. And when you miss the dots, you just make the dots bigger.
Oh, okay. Like that?
Okay, we good? Okay, this is step 1 to piecewise functions, is graphing the two lines. Everyone in here can do that because you just did it on your own. Step 2 is to do the if statements. Here's what the if statements look like. So this first one is if, I'm going to change the numbers. No, I'll use it. If x is less than 2, that's where you're going to keep the red graph. And the black graph is if x is greater than or equal to 2. I'm going to refer to this if statement as a fence, because what it does is it's chopping off your graph. So it's the breaking point between your graph. So show me, what does the graph x equals 2 look like? Show me with your arm.
X equals 2.
X equals 2. Straight up and down. Straight up and down. Okay? We're creating a fence at x equals 2. So I'm going to take, and I'm going to use this light color, and I want you guys to do this also. Very lightly, just make a fence, which is just basically breaking apart the graph. And we're only going to keep one part of the graph. So we're either going to keep this side or this side. It's like two different yards. You're only going to have, when you're done, you're only going to have one graph in each yard. Okay, one goes to your neighbor's, one goes to yours. So this first one, the red graph, is if x is less than 2. So I'm going to find my red graph, find which graph deals with this equation, -2x plus 3, which is right here. And at my fence line, I have to decide if I'm going to put an open dot at 2 or a closed dot at 2. What does your gut tell you with this if statement?
Open.
Why?
There's no line under.
Because it's not equal to. So on the red graph, I'm going to put an open dot on the fence. And then I have to decide which side of the fence am I going to keep. My if statement is saying I want this graph where x is less than 2. So does that mean I'm going to keep my right-hand side or my left-hand side?
Left-hand side.
Why?
Because you want the
Because it's pointing that
Okay,
way.
because I want where it's less than 2. And less than 2 is this direction of our fence. So I'm going to keep this side And I'm going to carefully erase the other side.
Oh.
Okay, now we go to the black graph, and we got to find the black graph on the fence. Here it is right here. And I have to decide, is it an open dot or a closed dot on the fence?
It's closed.
It's closed because it's equal to. And then I have to decide which way I want to keep.
This way.
This, you don't, I mean, you only want one in each yard. So you already have the red graph in this neighbor's yard. So the black graph is going to go into your yard on this side. X is greater than or equal to 2, which is to the right. So you want to keep over here and erase the other side. Now my erasing is going to erase too much. And this is a piecewise function. You took 2 pieces of 2 lines and you made one graph, one function. Okay?
Got it.
Now, this is not what it looks like. I made it look not, yeah. Okay, everything we just did is not it. Okay? No. This part, you're going to see it written differently. So let me show you how it's be written in your...
Are you going to have to put it in slope form?
They should be given to you that way. So let's do this one. This is what a piecewise function looks like. F of x equals, what is f of x? It's just a fancy what?
Y.
Y. So up here, I made them both y equals. Okay? That's how you're thinking. It's just y equals. But they make it look all mathy and fancy. So you have this f of x and then you have a bracket. So it's basically y equals, and then I have something like this, negative 1/2 x plus 1 if x is less than or equal to 3. And then I have f of x equals down here 3x minus 2 if x is greater than 3. So this is in your book or on the worksheet that I'm going to give you today. This is what it's going to look like. Okay?
This is like the same thing.
Fancy y, it means exactly the same thing as what I just showed you. But fancy y equals bracket 2 equations and their if statements. So before we start graphing, where's our fence line going to be for this problem?
3.
At 3. So we need to graph both of these equations.
At 3.
Not at 3.
Wait, no.
You're going to graph them like you normally would. And then you're going to put in your fence line at 3. So the first one I'm going to graph in blue. I'm going to start that up at 1. I'm going to go down 1 over 2. And I'm going to draw my line as best I can. And then the next one I'll graph in black. We'll start at negative 2. We'll go up 1, 2, 3 over 1. You guys agree with my graphs?
Yeah. Yes, I do.
Okay, I'm going to put in my fence line at 3. And that's where I'm going to be cutting off the lines. Okay, that's where I'm going to put my dot of either open or closed. So my blue graph, is that going to be an open or a closed dot at 3?
Blue is going to be a closed.
Closed, because it's less than or equal to. So closed dot, and then do I want to keep the right or the left? X is less than or equal to 3. The left, yep, I want to keep the left. So I'm going to erase the right. And then for the black graph, is it an open or a closed dot? Open. I'm going to tell you this, you can't have 2 closed dots, otherwise it's not a function, because it wouldn't pass the vertical line test if you had 2 closed dots. It's hitting the graph 2 places. So when you figure out which one's closed, you know the other one's going to be open. And same thing with when you figure out which way you're going to keep, the other way is what you're going to keep for the other graph. So we kept the left side for the blue graph, so we're going to keep the right side, and because it's x is greater than 3 for the black graph, and we're going to erase, oh, that's right.
Is there any circumstance where they both be open?
They could be both open. They could be both open, they just will never be both closed. Okay? And that's your graph, your piecewise. How's this? We're not done yet. I have a whole nother part to this. But how I feel like you guys are getting this, because this is the part that's hard for people for some reason. If you don't pay attention, you're going to have a hard time with it. Okay, so I'm going to have you guys try one on your own first, and then I'll go on to the evaluating. So this one is all by yourselves. Let's make it look mathy. F of x equals 2x plus 1 if x is greater than or equal to 0, and negative 1/2 x plus 4 if x is less than 0. So before you even start, where's your fence line going to go?
0.
At 0. Okay, good. I'm going to let you guys, I'm going to give you a couple minutes, go from start to finish with this graph, and then we'll compare and see how we do. And then we'll go on to...
Let me finish real quick.
You have your y intercepts.
No, I have these flipped. I just have these flipped.
Okay, take a look up here and see if you're... Okay, back to me now. Look up here and see if your graphs look like mine before you start. Yes? Okay. We said that the fence line is at x is 0, which is just the y-axis. The red graph is greater than or equal to 0, so the red graph is going to be a closed dot, and the right-hand side is where you're greater than 0. The blue graph, I can erase this. The blue graph should be an open dot at 0. And you want to keep that where it's less than 0, so you want to keep the left-hand side. So we erase the right-hand side and mess up our other graph. So check your paper and see if it looks like mine.
C.
Okay, if it doesn't, do you know what you did wrong? Okay? Yes?
So then on the dots, so like, if it's like an open dot, we just put like a circle around it.
Yeah.
Like point.
Yeah, that's what I did. Don't make it perfect. You don't have to erase. Just make it look like it should be open. Okay? Okay, last thing. And this is where I want your full attention. For some reason, this part is the most missed part on the test.
I thought you said the first part was.
No, the first part's not easy if you don't pay attention. It's easy if you do pay attention. This part, for some reason, is the most missed part on the test. So I'm going to give you a piecewise function. Which one should we do?
0.
-2. We'll use what we just did. We'll use this piecewise function. F of x equals 2x plus 1. If that was if x is greater than or equal to 0. And then the other equation was negative 1/2 x plus 4 if x is less than 0. Okay? So this time we're not graphing, we're evaluating. So I'm gonna give you an input, and you're gonna give me one output. Not two outputs because we have two equations, but one output. Depending on what the input is, depends on which equation you use. So do you guys remember your first day of school, you had to get in line and get your schedule? And so you got in line and, or it can be anything, but you got in line with your grade, and then you got in line with whatever your last name was. Yes? So you didn't go over to the 9th grade A's. You went to the 10th or 11th grade, whatever your last name is. That's the same concept of this. So if I said, okay, we're going to find f of 3. My input is 3. This is my x value. My x value is 3. I need to come up with one output. Depending on your input, depends on which line you go to here. That deals with the if statement. The top line is dealing with all the x's that are 0 and above. The bottom line is talking about all the x's that are less than 0. This x is a 3. So which line am I going to go to? The top one or the bottom one? The top, because that's what the if statement says. So to evaluate this, I'm going to plug in 3 for my x in only the top equation, because that's where he's going to line up to get his schedule, is in the top equation. And I'm going to get my output is 7. 2 times 3 plus 1 is 7. If I now have an input of 0, what line am I going to for 0? Or both. There's one of them.
Top.
Why top?
Because it's equal to.
Because here's where we're equal to 0. So we're going to plug 0 in here. 2 times 0 plus 1 is 1. And now I'm going to say, okay, now we're going to do f of -2. Where do the -2's go? Why the bottom?
Because it's negative and less than 0.
Okay, because that's where the x's go that are less than 0. And I plug it in here, and I have -1/2 times a -2 plus 4. So I get 1 plus 4, which is 5.
But that's not less than 0.
That's the y value. The only thing that's less than 0 that we care about are the x values.
Okay. That's
the common mistake. So you're all you care about is what the x value is to pick the equation. The output can be anything.
That's not too bad. That's
No,
not bad.
but for some reason it's the most missed part. But this worksheet I have today, we're going to go over this in class. So I want you to, the top part is evaluating. I'm not going to have you do all of the top part. The top part is evaluating. The bottom part is just matching the graphs. And then we're going to go over the answers. Okay?
Yay.
What time are we done in here on a Friday?
2 o'clock.
2 o'clock? Oh, perfect. This should not take you very long. So you're going to do 5 through 18. And I'm going to hope I have my answer keys. I don't want to look at things.
Yeah.
I'll read on Thursday.
Why am I so good?
Oh, that's right. We're talking about that.
Yeah.
Okay. I can get you work before you go.
So you call me Gil.
Bring that relationship back.
I get it.
Okay. 5 through 18 on your own.
I thought this was coming out.
So number 5, real quick, look at this really quick. At the top, if you look at, you've got an F, G, and H. So 5 through 8, you're dealing with the G functions here. And then 9 through 12, you're dealing with the H functions. Okay? So try these on your own. I'll stop you at, we have 20 minutes. So 15 minutes, we'll go over this.